Yes, you saw the title right. Alibaba's global e-commerce is in trouble as Shopee is set to beat it by up to 30% this year. So for those of you who don't know who or what Shopee is, I believe you're living under a rock. But hey, it's okay. I'm holding Alibaba. It's worse. Anyway, there was this seemingly scary title that piqued my attention and I decided to investigate what the author was arguing for. So like always, there are two sides of a coin and I can't help but find myself always trying to defend for Alibaba. So I think I'm underpaid. Heck, I'm not even paid for helping them manage their public relations. Anyone working in the IR division, you can slide me a DM or email. Anyway, jokes aside, I'm just a passionate investor that expresses my opinion on the internet. And it just so happens that there are so many people interested in knowing what I'm saying. So you guys know who you are, and I cannot be more grateful for having so many comrades in this bag-holding journey. So I actually heard that smashing the like button will help alleviate the weight on our backs. So you better like that smash button. Anyway, let's take a closer look on why Alibaba's global commerce is in such deep troubles like the author asserts. First, we were greeted by this chart that shows the comparison between what I would assume as Shopee versus Alibaba's international commerce quarterly revenues. And it doesn't take a genius to come to a simple conclusion that hey, Shopee is most probably going to overtake them in the coming quarter given this trajectory. Furthermore, if you were to look at the trend lines, Shopee has clearly experienced huge amount of growth since 2020, while Alibaba's quarterly revenue is lumpy and haphazard at best. So after 7 quarters, Alibaba only grew by 50%, while Shopee nearly 2x in the same period. So the interesting fact is, this graph actually only compares Alibaba's international e-commerce retail business, while casually excluding its wholesale business, which was why I initially thought that the 1.5 billion quarterly revenue seemed a little bit on the low side. So the funny thing is, if we were to include the entire international e-commerce revenue from Alibaba, the graph will look something more like this. Now, Alibaba's international arm don't seem so bad as how they have framed it. In fact, the title was a little misleading to begin with, where the focus was on Alibaba's global e-commerce business. It's as if Shopee is really overtaking the entire international e-commerce arm of both retail and also wholesale. So the author then proceeds to assert that Alibaba's international retail revenue for the fiscal year was $6.7 billion, while Sea Limited plans to reach anywhere between $8.5 to $9.1 billion for Shopee in 2022. And if you were to really compare Shopee to Alibaba's whole international e-commerce arm, they already did $9.1 billion in the previous year. So depending on how you want to compare them, if the article was really trying to accentuate the fact that hey, Alibaba's international commerce is a failing business, then it's better to compare it on the whole for a much more fairer perspective. Maybe Shopee can overtake in 2023 if they continue with the 70% growth rate, while Alibaba remains stagnant on their global commerce arm. So I'm not saying that the comparison of the retail numbers are not fair, but I just thought that the title of the article was trying to make a point. But the numbers don't really tell the same story, or maybe it's just me. Okay, now let's work with the premise that we only compare the retail part of the e-commerce business that excludes China, of course. So based on Q1 of 2022 results, the Shopee arm of Sea Limited makes up 52% of their overall revenue, while the international retail e-commerce arm of Alibaba makes up 4.8% of the overall revenue for that quarter. So if you were to use a simple price to sales ratio to really kind of figure out how much is being attributed to each business unit, Shopee is currently valued at around 24 billion USD by taking a factor of 52% to its current market cap of $46 billion. Whereas for Alibaba, that global retail arm is valued at around $12 billion if you were to take a factor of 4.8% to its current $250 billion valuation. Also, one important thing to take note. Looking at growth is only one part of the equation. You have to also know what is sacrificed to achieve this sort of quote-unquote high growth. So Shopee's adjusted EBITDA is negative $740 million, while Alibaba did not provide a breakdown. If you just do a simple attribution to their EBITDA, it works out to around negative $264 million. So you have a business unit here valued at 2 times more, making EBITDA loss of around 3 times more, while generating roughly the same amount of revenue, at least for now, but have the hopes that it will outgrow them into perpetuity. Even though we know that, hey, for all growth companies, there will inevitably be a slowdown sooner or later. Nice. for the record, the article did state that for the upcoming year's projection, Shopee will probably beat this specific business unit by 15% to as much as 30%. So don't be mistaken by the top line 60 or 70% growth, thinking that they are outgrowing Alibaba by 70%. So Alibaba's international retail business is also not stagnating, at least for now. Also, for the record, at Sea Limited's peak of $360 per share back in November of 2021, this Shopee business is worth $104 billion, while in the same period, the same Alibaba business unit is worth $21 billion. 5 times more, by the way. What a time to be alive. So please don't misunderstand, by the way. I have no intentions of laughing or even mocking at anyone or any investments for that fact. I just like to point out my own observations, even though I know that being an Alibaba investor is an extremely arduous journey when essentially any Tom, Dick and Harry is just laughing at you since last year. So it doesn't benefit anyone if we continue on with this toxic cycle of flaming and criticizing with insensitive remarks to each other, especially with this notion of quote-unquote have fun being poor. I guess I'm extremely happy with being poor. Also, I would just like to point out a few good pointers the article did bring about, which emphasizes on the many missed opportunities by the senior management of Alibaba and Lazada. So it does seem like over the last 2 years, if you were to compare the results of Shopee and Lazada independently, the management team in one is clearly getting complacent and just expected that the company will simply blossom on the basis of their position, brand, and money. In fact, based on the income statement, they probably didn't even bother with pumping enough money in this Southeast Asia region. Another good lesson that we can take away from here is that the world doesn't owe you anything. And once you feel entitled and complacent, that's the start of a downhill, and that's when competitors come in. Despite all these factors though, why do I still stay invested in Alibaba? So a few key reasons. Number one, they still have the leverage on their brand equity. Even today, traffic to Alibaba's retail site is over 50% higher than Shopee's. However, the crack only shows in the growth and efforts in the business. Number two, there seemed to be a plan in the pipeline of Lazada attempting to quintuple the business GMV by 2030. And also, there are rumors about a grand entry into Europe. Then, here lies the execution and strategy in both the regions. Number three, if the senior executive of Alibaba really wants to do it, I think Alibaba still has the highest chance to turn things around. However, as a concerned shareholder, I've been voicing my opinions on this international business at least for the last 2 quarters in all of my videos. So I'll give the management the benefit of the doubt of being kept busy at home due to the clampdowns, but at the end of the day, numbers don't lie. So last point I wanted to make, the author also discussed about how Alibaba's international business was gravely impacted by the VAT exemptions due to the new EU regulations, causing a direct reduction in orders on AliExpress. So I'd just like to humbly point out that this sort of cross-border regulations and disputes are not only prevalent to Alibaba. Every time someone writes something like this, I feel a tad bit uncomfortable, because this implicit understanding is that only the company in question has problems like this. I'm quite sure Sea Limited is also having their fair share of cross-border disputes with their gaming business as well. So what? The executive team is paid good money to solve the problems, so let them do their job. So sliding in a line or two like this will subconsciously build a certain impression on the readers, and that's just distasteful. With that, I'll see you in the next video, but more importantly, I will see you on the moon. Goodbye!